Welcome to Gray Reload, and in this week we have more news to cover here for the 20 Tech Topics episode. We're going to start with Nvidia because there wasn't much news last week in Nvidia, but unfortunately we're starting with the bad news where a Zotac RX 5090 caught fire. Yeah, that's right, caught fire, and they were playing Battlefield 6, and it left burn marks everywhere. Motherboard, PCB. And this is hopefully one that Zotac replaces the user, gets them back working again. This is a little bit more extensive damage than just the card melting, because now you have to take care of the motherboard. Probably anything, from what I'm seeing here from the pictures, he built a nice white case with white accents. Having burn marks on that's not going to look good. So, the cooler looks like it needs to be replaced and all of that. Now, if the user tampered with it, right, there's not much Zotac can do. But I don't know, from what it appears, that it wasn't really messed with. So this is one of those things where hopefully Zotac does the right thing and cleans this up and gets this back to the user working again, because these are the unfortunate side of things. And when you have a gaming rig, right, you want to make sure that you're gaming on it, not sitting there waiting for RMA parts to be repaired. So we, while that may be a side effect, right, we may have issues with the card or the part, right, we have to RMA it. We want to make sure that we're back up and running as fast as possible. Hopefully the company will do the same. So let's jump into another story from Nvidia here. They had a new driver release. Now this is a lot more upbeat, right? New driver release, hopefully more stable, no less issues. They fixed a couple bugs here. The 57-inch Odyssey Neo G9 flicker. They did that, and some notebooks displays may dim when external HDR monitors are connected and set to NVIDIA only GPU. So they have a couple more known issues, but it's also game ready for Hellblade 2. So they did release a driver. That's always good. Make sure that we're upkeeping with the drivers here, and make sure that we're actually getting, the performance out of it, support, and that's the main thing, is that these drivers and stuff are needed for games so far, right? Maybe AI is going to be able to write them one day, but for support and to keep fixing these, flickers or whatever else happens up. AMD had, some power issues in the last generation that they worked on, but keeping that and making sure that we're working to a more stable, so people can just jump on and play their games, I think is really important. I think that's a good end goal to do, is to get a lot of this stuff there. While we all love PC, right? We love gaming on it and stuff. The one downside is that sometimes it takes a little tinkering, where consoles don't have that, right? Consoles are, you load the game, you start playing. They have a known quantity of the hardware and everything else, so usually there's a lot less issues there. And hopefully, that's why I mentioned drivers updates when they come out, because I want to see that stability here from, well, if Intel keeps up all three manufacturers. Maybe there'll be more one day, but that'll be able to hopefully help the industry moving forward. So let's jump into AMD here. And this one was pretty interesting. Ancient Gameplays was actually messing with this. And it is a tool that allows you to whitelist more games for AMD FSR 4. So they need to support FSR 3.1 from what I understand, and be careful because of anti-cheat systems, etc., right? But adding this and then having it enable FSR 3.1 in the game allows FSR 4 to work, it seems like. So this is, built off of kind of what AMD said, that 3.1 FSR is kind of the, point where you can get into FSR 4, and that's like a little pathway there, or access. And Ancient Gameplays was kind of going through messing with this, confirmed it worked. Pretty interesting, right? If this is something that you want to look into, definitely take a look. But yeah, it's on for, of course, 9,000 users right now, because FSR 4 isn't on anything else. But as more of those cards get into the wild, this would be a great option for you to try if that's something you are interested in, especially in the lower end cards. that might you want something there to really move it forward. So on that topic of the lower end cards, let's just touch topic of the 9060. Now this is there's really been no reviews. There's been one review I've seen, but it's being sold directly to OEMs. So this goes into, it's an 8 gig card, right? The 9060 is an 8 gig card, and why didn't AMD then just release the 9060 XT 8 gig to OEMs only, and just make a 16 gig for DIY then, right? In fact, that probably should have been, like I said, this one that just came out should be like the 9050 XT. Then you'd have the 9060 8 gig and the 9060 XT 16 gig. And then don't even release those bottom two unless you really wanted a low end 8 gig card for the users for, you know, $199 or something. Just release that one for users out there. That's what I would have done, AMD. But yeah, I'm gonna put that out there right now because I'm kind of a little annoyed with how AMD approached this. So, you know, it's, well, if I'm going there, also Nvidia, right? I'm not a huge fan of the 8 gig cards. This, well, the last couple of years make really no sense. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing cards, right? My brother's thinking about building a computer, and maybe I'll be able to build that for him. And we're talking about RAM for VRAM on graphics cards, and I'm just like, stay away from the 8 gigs if you want to do anything at all, you know, gaming wise or whatever else going forward. So he wants to have it around for like 5 years. So if your outlook is that, right, 8 gigs is probably going to be everything minimums. It, maybe that's it. And hopefully, right, you know, hopefully no games decide to go, yeah, you need at least 11 gigs, right? Because then that would make it even more difficult for you in the future. Let's continue on to the 5700 X3D from AMD. Looks like this is going to be reaching end of life. So stock keeps getting worse and worse. I think there was even a report someplace where it has reached end of life. You know, this is on AM4 socket. We're kind of getting long in the tooth there. I think AMD has that 5500 X3D that's coming out that reports are about 6% faster than the normal 5500. But the 5700, 5800, those are really fun CPUs. But as I think a lot of this stuff in Epic has, you know, maybe taken all that supply with Vcache, you're kind of getting, maybe there's a lot of less manufacturing, you can't really get a whole bunch, and then so what they are getting is maybe biddings for that 5500 X3D, and AMD's just kind of saying, yep, we're done here, and we're kind of winding it down. If you're building a PC today, right now Intel doesn't really have too much, even with the price cuts they're having. Hopefully Nova Lake changes that. You know, some of the rumors from Moore's Law is dead definitely have me a lot more interested than I was a little while ago. But on that topic um, with the 5700 and stuff and building a PC, instead of going AM4, I'd be going AM5. You can get a nice used CPU or something like that, get you into that, or some nice deals. And I think now the price point makes a lot more sense, especially if you're close to Micro Center, or you can get a bundle or something. You have last generation, the 7000 versus the 9000 here, and maybe there might be a refresh or something. And then next year you're going to have that, whatever they're going to call it, probably 11,000, right? They skipped 10, right? They're skipping, I don't know. But that's just something to think about. If you are looking at a PC, that's the route I would go currently. You know, maybe we'll get Intel back in the game here and really start cooking. But until that happens, we got one choice. And speaking on that one choice, it looks like that the Ryzen CPUs still are just doing increasing share month over month, quarter over quarter. So they are, AMD's doing quite well, right? They're showing like up to 30% in some of the numbers here for the desktop share of the current quarter. So they keep increasing. This is good. If Intel and AMD are going, 50-50 on stuff, if that's where it kind of ends up, that's a good sign. I don't like to see one with too big unless they're unless they're crushing it, right? And they're crushing it in every facet, as well as pushing forward every single year and competing with themselves. Because if you get, we've seen this with Intel, right? Get lazy and we're just going to release quad core after quad core after quad core, and it takes then somebody else to come in to say, this can really happen. So AMD share increasing is one of those things that you're like, you know what, that's pretty cool. Have some competition in here, and be able to really really push the segment forward, right? And hopefully Intel can come back, push a little bit, because as long as you have that competition there, I think we get better products for consumers at better prices, and that's one thing I really like. Back to the 5500X3D, the 6% was better multi-threading, but the single cores seem to be about the same from what I'm seeing here on this, which, if you want a little upgrade, or maybe you're on like a 2000, maybe even if you're on a 1000 CPU, maybe this 5500 is something you want to put a little money into and get you a little bit faster. This looks like a good option for you. Yeah, AMD seems to be doing a pretty good job here with some of their stuff. And let's go to, I'll touch on the Xbox stuff a little bit later. Um, oh no, yeah, I think it's more about the Xbox side of things. So let's jump into Intel here. I think that's where I'm at next, right after that. Intel is having, and this is on video cards, where it was a good read, and this was announced from on Twitter too. So this is pretty interesting, where Core Ultra systems are gaining GPU memory sharing feature. So you can, AMD has variable graphic memory. This is something too where the Intel's doing the same thing, which I think is good, right? Especially if you're going to use this for LLMs, you can then enable the VRAM, go after and use that to calculate. I think one thing I like to see, especially with these NPUs and stuff, and see how they'll be utilized for this, right? You give them with the variable memory, either on AMD or Intel side, with the MPUs, starting to do these LLMs, so not just the GPU, but you combine even the CPU and everything and have access. Could be really interesting what they're capable of, and I'm sure that's what kind of Nvidia is getting at when they're going down the pipeline of trying to develop their own CPUs. So that kind of makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you can get a chip that works everything together, it helps compute where each segment, so let's say there's a GPU side that processes better than the MPU, and the CPU processes better than something else. You put each of those three different segments on those three different, parts in there that have access to the same memory. You could be, really increase performance there quite a bit. So Intel is unveiling USAI. So what they're trying to do here in the United States is develop a plan so that there is agents for U.S. military and, with the nation and stuff, and really make sure that it's all USA built. So this makes a lot of sense for Intel, right? Intel's been having a hard time breaking into kind of the AI segment, and here what Intel's able to do is go with the military, get some contracts here, and start developing there. Basically, the U.S. government is helping fund Intel in this scenario to get them on par, and interesting approach by Intel here. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. I have some thoughts, but it's just you kind of want to see what the best, for these projects. I'm sure other countries do this too. You don't want to just, go with somebody to help them out. You want to go with the best and make sure that it's local here to your country. So why don't we do that? Yeah, so we'll move on to the next one. Intel and its cutting edge 18A process node, they are saying it's ready for non-x86 SoCs. They had a live demo, um, mostly for customers that rely on ARM. My question is, now, if the leaks are true from Moore's Law is dead, no reason not to see that yet, but he had mentioned that Nova Lake was going to only have like the low end stuff, I thought, in 18A, and then all the higher end stuff on TSMC. what gives? If this is ready, and what else do you have to do for the x86 side, Intel? And if it's cutting edge, then wouldn't you be using this to make sure that all your processors are the best performing ones? Uh, those are some questions I'd like to have answered, right? Well, this is out there. Why should another another company, non x86, go to 18A if TSMC has a better manufacturing process? I this is It's cutting edge, but we're going to use TSMC, but you should use us. That doesn't add up, right? That's not a great way to go around and do business here. So let's talk about ARM today because we got a couple different ARM stuff. First, we'll start with the Dimensity 9500, and that's going to be, looks like it's got a pretty nice CPU here, and I'm excited to see this. I'm always interested in different CPUs that are out, even whatever they are, right? This is really going through and going to be competing with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 2, and that's not out yet, but Mediatek is really trying to go after this, and are impressed. Everything looks really good benchmark-wise, so we'll see what they're capable of all doing and stuff, but uh, they keep pushing forward, keep coming out with some CPUs, and I thought that Mediatek was working with Nvidia too, with their NX1 CPU. So as Mediatek keeps pushing this forward, it'll be interesting to see, what if AMD there's talk that AMD is working on an ARM CPU. If they're capable of doing that, do they work with somebody else? I think eventually Nvidia is going to not have that partnership. Uh, I guess if I'm thinking about things, NVIDIA could buy them, right? That would be an option for NVIDIA. But what I really think is that NVIDIA will go their own way. They really kind of keep all that stuff internal for the most part and push forward and try to beat you that way. So I could see that, but them working with it can, I think it's going to push. It's also a way. It's going to push Qualcomm, but it's also a way that Dimensity and MediaTek could get into supporting Windows on ARM if and I think Microsoft should just allow all these CPUs and get this over and say this is what needs to be for support, this is what you need to run it, etc., and have all these companies and get a little competition for Snapdragon here in Qualcomm. But NVIDIA, let's say they have one, and this might be a way for MediaTek to get in there too, and they can build some CPUs there. So just something I was thinking about there. And ARM also is talking about their ARM GPUs. So they're going to have an MPU with their AI-powered graphical upscaler for mobile. They talked about this 2026. That should be something that you can look forward to here. So let's jump into some of the other stuff here. Let's let's go to Microsoft real quick. There was another Linux flavor that shut down this week. Unfortunately, we had Clear Linux, and then this one, which is, I'm blanking on. Oh, here it is. I had it up. It's Casson. It's sad that some of these shut down. Now there's a lot of different flavors. Hopefully, a lot of the stuff that's done in those gets rolled up into other flavors of Linux, which is pretty good. But let's talk about the bad stuff in Windows now that we're getting there. Which you did your updates, right? Because Microsoft does updates, and Microsoft makes sure that it is reliable and secure. So that's Microsoft's mantra right now. I've been hearing that enough for the last couple of years. So Microsoft, you tell me any differently, well, maybe I keep saying that your actions need to be that, and I think I am still right here because here it is. Neowind had this. I've been getting all the news articles today from Neowind Video Cards and WCCF Tech, so be sure to check them out, support them as well. But Microsoft said, I guess there's the report that hasn't said it yet, hasn't admitted that they've been doing no testing. Wait, we know that they don't test. Somebody from Microsoft's going to be contacting me saying, like, we test. I'm going to be like, well, then you got to do a better job because the 24H2 updates that came out may be corrupting your data, breaking your SSDs and hard drives. So It seems to be if you're doing a large amount of data, that's happening here, and it's throwing the error code, and so they have deployed a fix, but Microsoft has deployed a fix, but I'm still, throwing this out there. I'm just like, this is ridiculous, Microsoft. This is, you keep telling us that you're testing this and that you are doing a good job and making sure we're reliable and secure. And while you're saying this, I cannot continue to ignore the fact that you keep releasing bad updates over and over and over again. Your history is that you have not had the best performance on Windows. You did not make sure that the AMD processors and even Intel processors to some extent had the best performance on these OSs. There is a multitude of, I think, from what I'm seeing, is testing issues and everything else. And if somebody from Microsoft wants to sit down and talk, it can be off the record, right? Um, I'm more than willing to, because I really want to hear what the side is, because as a developer myself, I focus a lot to make sure that there's automations in a lot of different things, so that as there is a bug or anything else, and different ways I can think of to create tests to make sure I'm trying to break the software before the software gets released, because I want the software fixed and stable before it is released. And these are something like this, where if you're bricking and you know SSDs and hard drives, that's a main component, right? That's shutting down operations for people. That is making people unproductive and sitting down. It's making people like me get calls and trying to how to fix this stuff. So that's really unacceptable on my part, and Microsoft needs to do a better job. They keep talking about it. They even had something on, the next, Windows Vision version. We'll mention that here. And I got to still listen to all the review. I kind of went out with my wish list of what I want for 25H2, but they were talking about the future of Windows. And so it's something that you guys got to focus on. If you're doing anything, right, I'd really focus on that, Microsoft. So the next side of things, let's talk about, we are going to get more dark mode stuff. So if you're a dark mode user, use dark mode, or trying to make sure it's on everywhere. A lot of websites turn it off for some reason over and over again, no matter how many times you select it to be on. But the file copies now, hey, you can't move. A lot of these other dialogues that Microsoft's been ignoring, they're finally getting there. And this is on the last topic. It was being upset that they have not actually held up to the word and saying we're being more stable. These are the things right here, Microsoft, where you're finishing other little dark modes. You can say, oh, those are small, those are inconspicuous, right? They don't really matter. No, these are the things where if you pay attention to the small details like this gives me hope that maybe Microsoft is committed to making sure that we are going to have a more reliable Windows, right? Because they're focused on the little things, and that's how you kind of got to clean up pieces of software, is the little things, the corner cases, the areas that may not be touched a whole bunch, but they may affect the system in a different way. Be focused on those little things, and I think it all comes together a lot better. So I'd like to see that. Good job there. Microsoft did share with what Windows is next. We kind of mentioned that here in there. I'm going to listen to all this stuff and probably come up with a separate video about this. The big thing, though, is Microsoft finally is doing some improvements for Windows on ARM for gaming. This is something Microsoft should have did out of the get-go. Really disappointed that they haven't, and really show that they didn't really commit to a lot of stuff, a lot of the Windows on ARM stuff out of the gate, even though the anti-cheat software is now supported on Windows on ARM, right? That's important because a lot of games have that with that Epic Game anti-cheat. So there's a lot of things here that need to be done in that aspect. And now the Xbox app will have best, what's all supported there for ARM-based or Windows 11 PCs. And this is something that they should have had from the get-go. So, yeah. And on the topic, I forgot I had this one in there. I was going in a different order, but You're just going and being like, "Hey, Microsoft, reliable, but event viewer is showing an error now related to the firewall. So guess what? You're supposed to ignore that error because Microsoft is reliable and secure and not having any flaws whatsoever. I'm not saying software has to be perfect, but uh, it's you get like one every couple few months, depending upon how big it is. Microsoft, smaller bugs are more okay. Bigger bugs like this should be more tested, right? This is kind of how you should equate things. Event viewer errors, right? People are gonna be looking at this stuff and be like, "Oh, this is something we have to look at." Uh, Microsoft, come on. Microsoft is sunsetting 23H2 Windows 11. So if you're on that version, you have a little bit of time left. What is it? Till November 11th? Update to 24H2. You can do that. Free little update there. So, yep. The, that's there. I think the addition, there's a version 2 of this that's not going to be available, which is if you're on, when did Microsoft stay? There's Home and Pro, right, for this. Oh yeah, it's just Home and Pro. I thought I was reading something else by another. Oh yeah, at professional SE and professional for workstations. Uh, they are going away altogether. So professional education, professional for workstations, and SE, that is going away altogether. I mean, uh, yeah, one of these things I really just think Microsoft needs to do. I know they still have home and professional. Probably just need to do one version of Windows, Microsoft. Just make it Windows. It has everything between all the versions, and yeah, just do it that way. You could do a pack if you wanted to, like, hey, you want the Pro pack, which is just enabling the features that are already there, but it's not a separate license. So I would do it that way. I know Microsoft charges different, but I think we can kind of move past that. We don't have, you're not really offering that much more for Pro. I mean, I use Pro, it's nice, but still. Microsoft doing the inevitable, which is creating an app which will eventually be killed, in my prediction. So, Windows 11 apps for Office will automatically install and start up. So, we're going to get like people, file search, and calendar. They're going to be all there. The calendar one may be useful. That's one I may use. But we already had people once before. Microsoft killed it, so that's where I think it's going. File search. Why don't you actually do the start menu file search and make that actually work? Uh, ding, ding, ding. That would be the key there. That would be the thing you would want to do, Microsoft. Instead, let's come up with an app because we cannot figure out the start menu. Can you tell I'm just a little bit annoyed with some of the Microsoft stuff lately? Yeah, Microsoft. So there is a mod for Windows 11 that is done by, who is it done by? I want to give credit to this person. It's Wind Hawk Mods, and it's a taskbar clock customizer, which has everything from CPU temp to weather to different stuff on there. RAM percentage, CPU usage. Microsoft, take a hint. This guy is doing the work you should have done years ago, and I really believe that. So, the, come on, Microsoft. A lot of that stuff should be there. Have it customizable, and do that there. So, did I have any other Microsoft news before I jump into one other topic before we get into gaming here? Because I have been messing with Home Assistant a lot, so trying to get more little home automation stuff there. And the Matter has released improved scenes, Wi-Fi only commissioning, and more. So in their 4.2, this is pretty cool overall. I got the Home Assistant stuff kind of working with it. I bought a Matter outlet just to try to see how it works. Works pretty cool. I want to look at more some of the Thread stuff to test that out, and I also have Zigbee here, so want to see which one I like the best and go from there. But a lot of home center assistant integration is really nice compared to some of the other stuff out on the market that's more closed source. So good to see some of that stuff there. And now let's jump into the gaming side stuff. First, we're going to start with Asus, right? Where is Asus here? I thought I had it. This is one of those where not really fully related to gaming, but I really want to try building in one of these BTS, right? Behind the board where they have all the connectors on the back of the board. I want to build with one of those, and they came out with one ROG Crosshair X 870E Hero board, 22 phases, 256 gigs of RAM you can put in this thing. Looks pretty cool, and while Asus has had their kind of some of the stuff, especially in the tech side of things, looks like a pretty cool board. Something I really like to try out, but I'm sure this is not going to be cheap, and it's $600 to $650. So probably me building with it anytime soon is not happening. Let's jump into the Xbox side of things, which is the next Xbox, which is Xbox. Why did I say Xbox? Xbox there is going to be the Magus APU, and this is going to be interesting. This is something they should have did last generation, which is have a console which they can build fine, and then also have that same APU for PC. Something I would buy, especially if you get a nice ITX board, maybe even plug and play with a socket. That could be a great option here, and you can build an equivalent PC using that APU. If you have an Xbox mode, maybe if you buy this APU, that's where your Xbox games, and they'll be compatible. Backwards compatibility is still there because it is an Xbox chip, so that maybe you keep all that compatibility. Right. And I think that this for AMD will be able to sell a lot of cards, and be able to sell them to the PC side, and people want to build with it and have what this is going to be gaming. And if Microsoft can, it's all the settings for those games, especially if they're just a console game, they just start up and work. Could be a great option for Microsoft overall, right? Why buy your kids an Xbox? Buy your kids a PC. Here it is. The kid can even buy a pre-built one from like Dell, HP, whoever, maybe even Framework or something. Then all of a sudden you go from there. You can build DIY, and now for their college or whatever else, they wanted a gaming system. They have one, and they also have something to do with their work on. I think that this is something that they should have done a long time ago, but here we are, right? A little bit later. So CrysisX is supposed to be an open world game, which is supposed to be like 1,200 kilometers map that can have 5,000 players per server. So it looks pretty cool, actually. This looks pretty cool. I kind of want to see what they have. I wish I had more time to play games, because this would be something that I like to try out. So that looks pretty cool. Ant Esports launches a new monitor, 750 hertz gaming monitor, and it's boasting a 0.8 second millisecond great response time. Yeah, I've been mentoring monitors, and this is another one. You want esports, you need something a little bit faster, you got it. They got something out faster for you, and go take a look and do it. So Battlefield 6, they seem to be doing really well. A lot of people liking it. I did not get out and play the beta. I didn't have time, but 600,000 pre-orders on Steam alone. They're predicting over 1 million going to be sold according to the analysis here. This could be kind of huge for them, and it's something that Call of Duty should watch out for, because this comes out soon, if I recall. I'm trying to remember when Battlefield 6 is coming out. I'd have to search that. But you have Black Ops 7 Call of Duty coming out in November 14th. Switch 2 version, which was part of the deal, right, with the DOJ or FTC and stuff. Microsoft will, with approval, will bring these games to Switch. Won't happen at first, so we'll see. If it never happens, then that could be an issue, but not happening at first could just be it's a new console, need to get support, need to start building it, etc. But launches November 14th. How is that going to stack up, though, to Battlefield 6 is going to be one of the things I'm going to be looking at here coming out. So next installment of Call of Duty, it will be here in November, and we'll be able to see how it stacks up to Battlefield and who's going to win that, because these two games coming out at once is going to be something of interest to me, because yeah, they're really kind of competing here between the two. So that is all this week. I want to thank you for listening to this week's Tony Tech's Comics installment. Sorry about my voice. I've been trying to stop and get my allergies underneath control here. So there's a couple stops in here because I'm just sneezing. I did have a friend stop by, a good friend of mine, and he gave me some suggestions for this. So maybe we'll have something, a running style once I figure out how to do that or something, so you can kind of see where stuff is, not just the chapters in YouTube, but hopefully some more work, more improvements here for at least this episode that's a little bit longer here, so you can kind of jump around where you want to go, and not just through the YouTube chapters, as long as I remember to do those, right? I think there's one or two of them where I forgot. So yeah, but I do want to thank you for your support, helping out. Hopefully I'll be able to go get some of the stuff installed that I recorded for you guys too. I got, some Ubiquity stuff. I should, this was too expensive. I was like, I'll try it. That's where I got to, and I got this. The Door Hub Mini, though, that's the one that I really am going to have something for you guys here. This is pretty exciting. I want to do something with a garage door here, and we'll see if I can't get it to go. I think I have to go pick up some cord or wire today. I don't know. I got to check to see if I got some. I'm looking underneath where I have all the wire. I don't think I do, but if I do, I'll have something set up today, or I'll run to the store, get something, and maybe record that video today or something. But over the next couple weeks, you guys will get stuff like that out. So thank you so much. I'm rambling now. This is the end. You guys can cut off already. You probably already have. So, well, thank you so much. Don't forget to watch, share, subscribe. That really does help out the channel. Until next time, God bless.